Okay. Joanna Mendoza, a retired U.S. Marine whose career included multiple combat tours to Iraq and Afghanistan. Joanna's life has always been about service, rooted in Southern Arizona values and shaped by the working families of Pinal County. She's lived the struggle, fought the battles, and knows what it means to deliver results, not excuses. In Congress, Joanna will bring Arizona values of honesty, integrity, and accountability to Washington. She's committed to practical, unifying solutions that lower costs for families, expand access to health care and education, protect earned benefits, strengthen national security, and uphold responsible gun ownership. Joanna will protect Arizona's water and natural resources, tackle climate change, ensure transparent and responsive government, invest in the next generation, and defend democracy and equal rights for all. In every conflict our nation has faced, Marines have been there. Joanna Mendoza stands ready to take that same fighting spirit to Congress to be the champion and the voice Arizona's communities deserve. Please welcome Joanna Mendoza.
You so much. I'm really excited to have the opportunity to be in front of you today. Is it Marguerite?
It's just pronounced like regular Margaret.
Oh, okay, Margaret. Happy to start whenever you're ready for me.
Yep, go for it. You're on.
Okay, well, you heard a little bit about my bio. I'm just going to give you a little bit more context, and then I'll move into the state of the race, and then we can open it up for questions. But I am the proud daughter of farm workers, born in a small rural farming community in Pinal County, so born and raised in the district. And I worked alongside my parents in the fields for many a summer since I was about 9 or 10, until I could legally get a job at the age of 16. And it's not uncommon for the children of farm workers to work alongside their parents. It's still happening today. But it taught me a few valuable lessons, that there are people who work extremely hard in our communities and still struggle to make ends meet. And we often found ourselves on safety net programs, the very same programs that are now being cut by this administration, like SNAP, Medicaid, WIC, all of those things that those programs that allowed me to grow up strong and healthy to serve my country for 20 years. And so my parents weren't mooching off the system. They were using these programs that were available. And I will tell you that even as a young child, watching my mother walk into an office to have to apply for some of these programs was not the highlight of her life, and especially not as a parent. Something extremely difficult to do when you cannot provide for your children. And, our families are still in that same position today. I joined the military at a very young age, hoping to be able to see the world and meet, folks from all across the nation and learn a skill set that would help me get out of poverty. And I like it. I liked it so much that I served in two branches of service and retired from the Marine Corps in 2016 after the birth of my son, and came back home to Arizona only to have such a difficult transition from military life to civilian life because I joined at 17. I have never really been part of the civilian workforce. And so it was a huge transition and very difficult, to be honest. I was a brand new mother, still trying to navigate how to access some of the veteran programs that are out there. And then being told repeatedly that I was not qualified for, positions, especially leadership positions, when I had led and trained Marines not only in combat zones, but here in the US. And so, you never tell a Marine that they can't do something because they will prove you wrong time and time again. And that's what I set out to do. Found myself working in government for a former member of Congress, Congressman Tom O'Halloran. Left his office after he lost re-election due to redistricting in 2022. And then took my skill sets of working in office and focused on the state legislature here in Arizona, which has been Republican led for 30 years, a couple of decades. And so lots of work to do there. I focused on, in the nonprofit sector, I focused on economic and tax policy, especially around programs for children and families, and also did some veteran advocacy for veteran service members and their families as well. And I will tell you why I'm jumping in to answer the call to serve my country again is because that oath of service that I took multiple times throughout my 20-year career is a lifelong commitment. And that oath that you swear to protect and uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, is something is a huge commitment that I will take with me to the grave, because I will continue to answer the call every time my country needs me. And she's in trouble now. I have a 10-year-old who I think about obviously every day, but I think about his future and what that's going to look like for future generations. And it really scares me to think that, what we're seeing play out right now across our nation in communities, um, to see what this administration is doing. I never thought that I would see in the homeland. I never thought that I would see what has transpired happen here. You see it in countries like the ones I've been deployed to where democracy does not exist or has fallen. And you never think that that's going to be the same case here. And what we're seeing is unprecedented. And this is not the norm. And I just couldn't stand by on the sidelines and watch this happen to our country or to its people, to us, to we the people. Um, so I decided to once again step into the arena and fight, because that's what I know how to do. That's what I was trained to do for 20 years. But this time, obviously as a member of Congress. I will share with you that since we launched this campaign back in February, we have raised a little over $2 million, which is great. It's very bittersweet to say that out loud, though, knowing that there are a lot of folks out there who are suffering and can't make ends meet and are one paycheck away from eviction, or are struggling to put food on the table for their children. But this is what is required as of right now in order to be able to have a viable and credible campaign. And over the last couple of months, my team has certainly done that. We have also amassed a huge coalition of support in the form of endorsements, which is not just a PAC check and a PAC check drop off and then they walk away. It is a commitment to this district and to its people to ensure that we elect representation who will truly do the work that needs to be done and not bend the knee to party bosses like Representative Siscomani. So the district is a toss-up. It's a competitive toss-up, according to Cook's political report. We also outraised the Republican incumbent in the third quarter, which is extremely rare and exciting, that we have an incumbent who's in his going on his second term, and he is being outraised by a first-time congressional challenger in the off-cycle year. And so we delivered that blow, and we're happy to do that because we are coming to take the seat. And a couple weeks later, the House Majority PAC, which is a third-party organization, and they do a lot of work for the National Democratic Party, if you're not familiar, but they published a poll in a head-to-head matchup, which means they just shared names, no bios, no profile, and it showed that we were leading the Republican incumbent. So this is all great news, but we're still really long ways away from the actual election and things can change. However, we see the trajectory of this administration and we know that what they're going to do is not good for our communities, for us, or for the country. And it's going to continue, I think, to snowball, and we're going to see the people really push back on the policies that are destroying our democracy and causing a lot of pain and suffering for a lot of families. So it's a little bit about myself and the state of the race. We have been endorsed by Senators Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego. Additionally, Gabby Giffords. This district is a more modern version of Gabby Giffords' old district. So if you're familiar with her and her work at Giffords PAC, then you know how much this seat really means to the people of Southern Arizona. And I'm just so blessed and honored to have her endorsement, and of course that of both our senators who are both veterans. And as you know, Mark Kelly right now is being targeted for standing up for our military service members. So you can find a complete list of our endorsements on my website at joannamendoza.com. I don't need to go through all of them, but if you're interested, please take a peek. And I think I'll pause there and we can open it up for questions, Margaret.
Very good. Thank you.
Mhm.
We have a couple of questions in the chat that I'm going to read. The first one is, what was your role in the state legislature, and say more about your accomplishments in that role.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't elected to the state legislature. I did a lot of advocacy work there. I did run for Legislative District 11, so prior to redistricting in 2020, for a Senate seat at the state legislature. And we received 46% of the vote in a really ruby red district. It's actually the district covered the areas in which I grew up in and am currently raising my son in. So I think there's something to be said about having roots in the district that you're running in. And in addition, here, especially with a lot of rural communities who are very, um, uh, let's just say that they are not necessarily open to outsiders. So you really have to live in the community to understand rural communities and the struggles. But I will share with you that I have done policy and advocacy work. Not only did I do that when I was working for Tom O'Halloran, a member of Congress from Arizona, but I did that as, like I said, at the nonprofit level. And in addition to that, I am finishing up a second master's right now in political psychology, which led me down the rabbit hole of trying to figure out why people vote the way that they vote. I have a certificate in public leadership from Harvard, and a couple other certifications. I consider myself a lifelong learner, and will probably continue to take, a course here and there because I like to keep current. And really, I think that, in attending these courses, I can really learn about how to maybe solve our problems, especially the one where Congress needs to do their job and get stuff done, because right now they're not doing that. So,
Okay, thank you.
mhm.
And another participant said, please share some lessons learned from your 2020 run against Vince Leach in ID
Yeah.
11.
Yeah, that was I mean, it was a tough race. We were the underdog. And I think the takeaways there is that you have to be really clear about where you stand on issues. I was being targeted as a Democrat that stated that that I didn't want funding to go to, our law enforcement, which is not true. I support, our law enforcement. I support border security as a Marine who has actually been on the front lines. I know what it means to have security and safety for our communities. And so that was a huge lesson. The other thing, is that running for office is really tough. And I think every American should run for office at least once, so that you can really understand how hard it is for people to get elected. I never really understood it until I did it myself. And I think it would bring a whole new appreciation to what it means to serve in our government if people actually really did it, because it is not a walk in the park. Luckily for me, I'm used to doing hard things. But wow, it was really an eye opener for me. And the system isn't really built to support candidates like myself. I mean, I come from a blue collar working family. I'm a single mom, a working mom. And for me to be able to do this and run for federal office, I've had to put things in place that would allow me to do this financially, living off of my savings, making sure that I'm extremely organized because I am a mom and I have a school age kid. But those were just a few of the lessons learned, but it
Mhm.
is possible. If I can do it, anyone can do it.
hmm Thank you. We have quite a few questions in the chat, so I'm going to combine two of them here. Where
Okay.
one person says, how are you campaigning? What is your strategy to turn Republicans? And another person asked, when will you start some of your advisory committees?
Mhm.
I signed up and haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah. Well, thank you for all of those questions. So our strategy right now is we actually have to be very disciplined in terms of where we put our energy. We have to raise a lot of money. This race is going to cost between 12 to $15 million, which means that we have to raise a lot of money to be able to have an early field investment in the first quarter. That means, having people on the doors knocking to get our message out. We know that, the national party usually doesn't come in until the summer or sometime around, the late summer, which is really too late. We have to get on the doors early in the first quarter in 2026. Additionally, that means that we are going to be ramping up our volunteer efforts. And of course, the advisory committees will launch in that first quarter. Kyle can take your name down for that individual that signed up and hasn't heard anything so that we can make sure that you're on our list. But if you haven't signed up already, you can sign up to get the updates. Kyle does he does like a monthly newsletter, and we're going to do like a year in review newsletter as well. And then in the on cycle, that'll be more current and more repeated so that people are staying up to date. In terms of how we're going to win, I will share this district has a huge veteran demographic, about 80,000 veterans in this district. We have a couple of military bases and a lot of military families. And so a candidate with military service actually does perform well in this district. We saw that with Senators Mark Kelly and Ruben Gallego, and even our Secretary of State, who is a Marine veteran. They all overperformed in this district. And if we want to go back even a little bit further, the district was cut a little different. Martha McSally, who was a Republican, was also a veteran. So this district has been represented by both Democrats and Republicans, and veterans do particularly well. But just because we do well doesn't mean that we don't need to get out and talk to folks. We have to talk to everybody, meet them where they are. And I saw a question about something about the philosophy of change for the Democratic Party. Look, I think we need to really make sure. We used to be the party of working class folks. We used to be the party of families. We used to be the party of veterans. And, somehow, some way, that hasn't necessarily been very clear, especially in districts like Arizona 6 or in battleground states like Arizona. So we really need to make sure that we are investing resources and time and effort into reaching out to rural communities, because they are the ones that are struggling most. They lack the most resources. Here in this district, Representative Siscamani voted for the One Big Beautiful Bill, which we're calling the Big Billionaire Bill, that voted to cut Medicaid. And that right there specifically, there's funding that's going to be cut from rural hospitals, which means that people will have to drive, an hour and a half to get, somewhere. So a mom who is, or a pregnant woman who is about to deliver, not going to be able to do it in a rural hospital because those services are being cut. So all that to say is that we need to get back to the basics. We need to get back to talking to people and having those difficult conversations. It's scary. It really is. And I know that there's a lot of safety concerns, but do what you can. Talk to your family, talk to your neighbors. You'll be surprised how much you have in common, and where you can find common ground. So my philosophy on what needs to change is the Democratic Party needs to get back to the basics and ensure that they're reaching out to rural communities and veterans. Let's embrace being patriots, my friends. We have, we've let Republicans take it hostage, and it's our flag. It's that flag, our country, our colors, our motto. It belongs to we the people. And so feel proud to wear your red, white, and blue and call yourself a patriot. We need to take it back. It belongs to us. So I will stop there in case there are a few other questions.
Yes, we have quite a few questions. Would you support Medicare for all?
So listen, I haven't really developed a position on this, and here's the reason why. Because we have a huge medical professional shortage right now. Even if we were to have a universal healthcare, we would still have the shortage of medical professionals. We saw that in COVID, not only play out in states like Arizona, but across the nation. We are losing people. We're losing people to burnout, to the lack of mental health resources. And I didn't really even know this was an issue until I spoke to a nurse who was saying that she was leaving the the medical field because she felt that she had this burden of making sure, especially when COVID was around, of making sure that people actually like survived. And she was doing everything that she could. And so for her, it was impacting her mental health so much that she left the medical profession. And so we need to make sure that we address that issue first, and how do we do that? There can be federal funding. I know the university down here initially had a program for those interested in becoming a doctor or entering the medical field, as long as they committed to going back and working in rural communities or in rural hospitals, which we know now those are being cut and probably will be shut down. But we need to address the shortage in that profession before we can talk about anything else. But I'm happy to keep having conversations about it because I do think this is a priority. I know it is. I've heard from a lot of people that healthcare is at the top of their mind. And for me personally, my mom is diabetic and she's not ambulatory. And so there's just a lot of issues with the system, and especially for our seniors, just trying to get appointments or understand how the system works. So anyways, all that to say is that we need to address the medical professional shortage, and happy to continue to have more conversations about what that can look like for the future.
Mhm. Thank you. What specific actions will you take to fight Juan Ciscomani, and what is your criticism of him, and how would you prepare for a possible debate?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, I don't think he's going to debate me. I have asked him in a couple of press conferences. I have put it out there. Hey, Juan, you and me debate anytime, anywhere. Let's do it. Nothing.
Uh-huh.
Um, he's afraid to meet with constituents. He's afraid to have town halls. And I think that clearly shows his priorities, which is not, the people of this district. It's not, working to get stuff done for Arizonans or Americans as a whole. So I don't think he will debate me, but if he's willing, I will. And the record speaks for itself. The Center for American Progress published a scorecard. He votes 100% of the time with Trump, even though he goes around trying to say that he is a moderate and he's bipartisan. He's not. What he is, though, is spineless and a coward because he doesn't want to face his constituents for the votes that he has taken. We are paying his tax dollar or his salary with our tax dollars. So we deserve a response when he takes these votes. He voted to cut Medicaid. He voted to make it harder for people, families, working families like the one I grew up in, to get access to safety net programs to help them get through, difficult times. Again, he refuses to meet with constituents, and he bends the knee to party bosses. I mean, we don't need someone who is going to be beholden to one person. We need someone who is going to stand up for their communities, who's going to stand up for what's right, and who is going to push back, especially on their party when things are not right. So, anyways, all that to say is that we know that he's spineless and he's a coward. And I will say it again in case he's watching this whenever it gets posted, to YouTube or whatever. Juan Ciscomani, you and me debate anytime, anywhere. Let's do it.
Great, thank you. I'm going to read one more question, and then in the interest of time, I'm going to save the rest of the questions and perhaps, if possible, ask you to respond briefly to them in writing after the fact, because we will need to move on in the meeting. So
Yeah, of course.
this question is, what are your thoughts about reaching out to independents and moderate Republicans who are unhappy with Trump?
Yeah, I will share with you that we already have some what we call here in Arizona McCain Republicans who are true conservatives, who believe in the rule of law and fiscal responsibility and love our country and its democracy. And they've already attended, there's been some that have attended events. There's folks who never voted for Trump. There's folks who voted for him and realized that they made a mistake. And are now like, hey, we want to support you, we want to correct it. And I think we really need to make space for those folks who may have lost their way and are ready to come back and keep our democracy intact. But there's no secret sauce other than going out and talking to people. You can have civil discourse and not agree on every issue, but you can find common ground on a lot of things. And I think some of those things are obviously healthcare, which is extremely important for people, the cost of living, ensuring that people can actually afford to survive and thrive, and in addition to jobs and the economy. I mean, trade these trade wars that this administration is doing and that Ciscomani is complicit in, we have ruined our relationship with one of our oldest trading partners, Mexico. This is a border district, and we have ruined that relationship. So, how are we supposed to get our economy back on track if we don't have a good relationship with one of our oldest trading partners? So, these are the things that I'm going to be focused on, and those are the things that everyone cares about, regardless of political party.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Really appreciate hearing from you, and thanks for joining the meeting.
Well, thank you for having me, and feel free. I'm sure if you want to send the chat and the questions that
Hmm.
remain to Kyle, happy to
Hmm.
provide some answers, or feel free to reach out to the campaign directly. Would love to chat. So thank you,
Okay.
everyone, and thank you for the work that you're doing to help save our democracy. So happy
Thank you so
holidays.
much.
Thanks
Happy
so much.
holidays to you too.
Okay,
Thank
bye
you.
bye.